Hey everybody, my name is Qcknd, and today's video is going to be about my friend Morgan Joyce. So I actually started to make this video a week ago, and I kind of couldn't.
So I know like a lot of people are asking me to make a response to Morgan's video, and I tried to start it today and I can't, so I will try another time.
I wanted to collect my thoughts, and I wrote down some notes in green pen, so I can't read them. But today's video is going to be a response to Morgan's video where she talks about how she regrets her tattoos. If you haven't seen it, my friend Morgan, she's pretty heavily tattooed, and she made a video talking about how she regrets her tattoos and how tattoo regret is real. I just wanted to kind of walk through my thoughts on this. Even on her video, someone had mentioned that I have made videos like this before when some people were like, can you talk about this? And it is an interesting phenomenon, of course, and I have talked about having a hard time dealing with being tattooed, but for the most part, I kind of hold back because there's definitely a lot of resistance and a lot of pushback, I feel personally, when I make comments like this. So I generally kind of don't. So I was pretty excited that Morgan made this video. The video starts off where Morgan says, you know, she's kind of stuck with her tattoos and the decisions that she's made being a heavily tattooed person. The decisions she made while she was young are going to be with her for the rest of her life. And right away she opens up and she said, I would need tattoo removal for the rest of my life. And it's very interesting. I follow a tattoo removal Instagram. I've had tattoo removal done by this person. They had recently posted this thing all about large pieces and the success of removal for large pieces. And in their blog post, they talk about how they do not recommend getting large pieces removed. Reading that the other day, days before Morgan posted this video, kind of did sit with me weird because you do realize that you don't have options. It is one of those things where you feel helpless because your options are very, very, very limited. Having tattoo removal, especially at a scale of Morgan's or even mine, is very, very, very limiting. And Morgan has a big chest piece that I can say in full confidence that she can't have complete removal on. And when faced with a situation like that where you don't have options, I could see it being very upsetting, very anxiety inducing. And Morgan has actually reached out to me before. We made a video earlier this year, kind of like a podcast sit down kind of video, talking about our beginnings and like our journey into social media. And later that week, Morgan texted me and she was like, we should make a video together where we talk about the differences between her and I, me being someone who can cover their tattoos and her someone who can't. And I loved that idea. I was like, yes, Morgan, come through. But I don't drive, so it didn't really happen and I feel bad. But it can definitely happen now because I want that video. And I want two people who consider themselves heavily tattooed to have that conversation. But with that information, like knowing that Morgan was having those feelings months ago, you know, being tattooed in a way where for the majority of the time where I live in Pennsylvania, I can be pretty much covered. And I still do battle with the fact that I have tattoos that I can't remove and tattoos that I have forever. And in a world where everything is an option, like I said, difficult to swallow that with our bodies as tattooed people, we don't really have options anymore. I'm a big advocate for tattoo removal. My friend Valonius is not, so it is interesting to interact with somebody who doesn't believe what I believe, and then have Morgan, who I fully support and also am actively seeking tattoo removal in this very moment. So it's definitely difficult, but even if Morgan went down a path to get 12 sessions of tattoo removal as a model, it's not really an option for her. Now, I wonder, because I've seen the MTV True Life, I'm getting my tattoos removed, and that guy gets like all of his tattoo removal. I just watched a documentary on Amazon that was like okay about tattoo removal. I would say that there were success stories in that documentary, but with that blog post that larger tattoos do not have a high success of being removed completely, and that they don't recommend that you seek removal, more of some light removal with the intention of cover-up. So tattoos are always going to be there. So there's this thing in tattoo community or even an alternative lifestyle where People tell you, you're going to regret that. I've been hearing it my whole life for some reason. Like, when I first dyed my hair, you're going to regret that. My first piercings, like, regret, regret, regret. I heard it so often growing up that it wasn't loud enough anymore. I heard it everywhere. And for me, getting tattooed was just like another, you're gonna regret that, hearing it everywhere all the time. So I started getting tattooed and started getting piercings and having second thoughts or feeling weird. And for example, I took out my piercings so I could get a better job. And I felt backlash. And the backlash came from both sides. So you're like, where's your support system? The backlash came from pierced people. And the backlash came from people who felt very satisfied that I took my piercings out because they were waiting for me to regret them. And it put me in this really weird situation where I didn't have a support system, so I had to like rely on myself, which isn't always like my strongest support. Like, especially when I'm down, relying on myself is tough. So with tattoos, I can only imagine it feeling the same exact way. Even when I had my earlobes reconstructed, which has brought me only satisfaction. When I had them done, the person who did them, amazing, would die for. But there was someone in the shop who was like, now you won't be cool anymore. And I didn't know him personally, so I don't know if he was being funny or serious. I'm that way. I feel like people don't know when I'm being funny or serious. But I remember in my experience, I took that with me. I took the fact that he said, now you're not going to be cool anymore, because I was having my earlobes sewn up. And that was somebody who, you know, I could have walked into that shop and bought jewelry and been cool to him. So when you relate that to Morgan's story, it's really daunting because you get it from both sides. Tattooed people don't want you to get removal because you're stuck with it. And, you know, your whole life, all of these people, everyone has been telling you that you're going to regret it. And you've had to pick your battles your whole life. Are you going to regret dropping out of school? Are you going to regret moving to the city? Are you going to regret this and that? Like, all along. So picking your battles, if you chose to be tattooed, it's just another thing that you may or may not be faced with regret. One thing I did want to touch on though, watching Morgan's video, at least when I was younger and I started getting tattooed, I was kind of surrounded by people also going through the same thing as me, a tattoo puberty, if you will. Getting small tattoos, figuring out how to get tattoos, tattooing themselves in their home, dyeing their hair pink and blue, and piercing their nose themselves. When you were in that community, all of your decisions felt right because you were surrounded by people figuring themselves out as well. And then we get older, I'm a little bit older than Morgan, and you lose that system that you were in that encouraged you to modify your body. And speaking from my experience, I don't get to hang out with a lot of tattooed people, which often makes me feel like I want to fit in with the people around me. Conscious or subconscious, I want to blend into the group that I'm in, almost as just like a nice homeostasis. Like, you spend time with someone, you pick up their mannerisms, you pick up their lexicon, you start dressing like them. Rosie and I are Croc Squad. You lose that when you're not around tattooed people. And I feel this heavy too because there's no vegans in my group. Morgan and I have said this painfully so. If we lived closer together, we would go to TJ Maxx together and hang out, and there would be strength in our relationship. And I'm sure that just seeing each other would offer some sort of validation that isn't in our lives. I know that Morgan is very popular, but I also know that she lives in a place where she has to drive, like a suburb. That can be really isolating, especially when you stand out. You know, we want to be in our communities, and when you feel like you're not a part of your community, you naturally just feel ostracized. And I might be speaking, you know, for myself, but I had this live stream a few weeks ago where I talked about going to the Poconos, and I felt like I was standing out a lot, and I felt like I didn't have any support because my boyfriend is not tattooed. And I just felt like it was the world against me instead of the world against us. And I even said, like, if it was Morgan and I walking around that Walmart, and Morgan probably wearing like a pink Fashion Nova bodysuit, and me looking like a Kurt Cobain hobo, I would have felt like $1,000,000. I would have felt like it was us against Walmart. But with just my boyfriend there, it kind of just felt like I was the freak. If that's something I denoted to myself or something that I've, experienced, it is tough when it's just you. Even this year, Morgan and I went out to a restaurant together and we got our own table and we were laughing and we were loud and we ordered everything and it just felt like cool. But without that, you don't have that confidence. Like, you don't have that squad to back you up, especially if your partner isn't tattooed, if your friends aren't tattooed. And it's tough because as you get older, you surround yourself with the people. Like, I've found that I have really good relationships with, like, freelancers or, like, people who work from home or have odd schedules because I have an odd schedule. So I can only imagine for Morgan how even more tough it is to find somebody who she can have a relationship with outside of that. I think another reason why, as I get older, have thoughts about regret and have different things like that is when I was younger, my tattoos were definitely a big form of self-expression. They are currently. They really are. One thing that I think about a lot is when I started getting tattooed, I didn't have a ton of money, so I would put money into tattoos because I knew it was forever, and I knew it was an investment in myself, and I knew no one could take it away. And that was my story. And now I have just so much more confidence and strength in public speaking. All of the time, I wish that I had this ability when I was younger to be outgoing. But it's like I learned the word shy and like completely acclimated my life to it. I was like, shy, that's me in every aspect. Let me read up on it. Yeah, that's me, I guess. And then I got older and I felt more confident and I'm able to express myself verbally a lot better than I ever was. So I think, even Morgan has talked about becoming more confident. And I think that's tough because I grew up with zero confidence. I happily said that I had ugly duckling syndrome until I was like 25. And I know that there's different relationships and studies that say that your brain is fully developed by 25, which just like makes me sad because I've just found more acceptance. Did you just break something? If that's one of my McDonald's glasses. I've just found so much more self-acceptance in who I am now, being able to communicate. And maybe it's from retail, from small talk, from YouTube, I bet. I think my tattoos were definitely something I used to speak for me before I confidently could. And I wonder if Morgan is experiencing that as well. Finally, I want to talk about the effects of tattoos and social media. And I think I could go in depth with this a lot further and dedicate an entire video to it. And I also think I've talked about it before, so you might recognize some of the language I'm going to use. Tattoos and social media have exploded. When we view things online, our mind is open and we're absorbing all of this stuff, and sometimes you're not even taking in things you agree with or things you believe or your own organic thoughts. You just adopt the thoughts of other people sometimes, I do wonder how much social media has changed tattoos and getting tattooed and having access to viewing tattooed people. And I get messages from people that were like, you helped me get tattooed, and I'm happy, I've put out hundreds of videos to help people get tattooed. I think that social media has really just kick-started the entire process, from sitting on your couch and finding the best tattoo artist, to narrowing down exactly how you want your tattoos to look, to literally photoshopping tattoos on your body and printing it out and bringing it to a person. Like, this is crazy. Pinterest, Instagram. I started getting tattoos before I had access to Instagram and before I had access to tattoos over the internet. I do wonder how tattooed I would have been if that process was so slow and like a whole day and like a huge grinding process, and I would have probably only had one tattoo artist. And what I'm trying to say is social media has made this process like so much faster, streamlined if you will. And Morgan and I are children of social media. I have tattoos on my body right now that I got because I met a tattoo artist on social or loved their work and then got the tattoo and now I don't have any feelings about it or feelings of regret. It sucks because another layer of it is I don't want to offend anybody by getting tattoos removed because my body is so public. Even Morgan, like, you're such a public figure that you're almost like not allowed to make mistakes. I think Morgan's video is brave, and these are my thoughts on it. I haven't made a personal video for a long time, and I do feel bad losing that connection with you guys. So I thought, you know, this would be a nice step to kind of open up my heart and kind of just like process what's going on with my friend. Morgan, I've said it before, Morgan's never left me on red. She has always been a really amazing friend to me. But I think everything she said was really human and something that it was hard for me to watch because it was just hard for some, like I said, just hard to like watch your friend just like go through something. I absolutely am not sitting here and saying that I don't regret tattoos that I have, because I do. I've expressed it in one way or another over a variety of different videos because all I ever want to do is be honest with you guys. I do have a hard time sometimes finding the language that expresses regret without the lifelong idea that regret is permanent and that regret is forever, because I can regret what I had for breakfast, but I wake up the next day and do it again. And I can regret wearing shorts to the Poconos Walmart, but then I get to see my friend and we're badass together at the restaurant. Having tattoos is tough, and we're the first generation to document how we feel every day, all the time, in every situation. Sometimes I call it Twitter brain, where like 5 things will happen to me in a row and I'm like, I gotta tweet every one, and I'm like, that's Twitter brain, like that's just let things happen. Not every barista likes you, shut up. This is the very, very, very first time and I'm happy to be a part of it and lend my thoughts to you on the tattoo scene. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Hate to ask you to subscribe on a serious video, but if you wanna. I also make hundreds of tattoo videos and fashion videos, so check them out. Anyway, I love you guys. Bye.